Hi guys, I'm going to start off this video by saying this is not for veteran players, people who play, I guess, a lot of these games constantly. These are for newer players. I'm going to be kind of giving a tips, for players who don't play these games often and kind of just, getting into it. And first off, I want to just explain, I guess, buildings, right? Buildings are super important, and basically as you get your headquarters up, your march capacity gets higher, which means that you can send out more troops, which is very important to one, be able to fight people better. It just makes it like way easier to fight people. And there's also squad deployment, which headquarters 20, you're actually able to get 5, which is pretty massive, being the fact that you can send out all 5 marches, which can help you gather and such things. I also want to mention that squad deployment also counts on your hero levels, which if you have a level 60 hero, it should at least be able to go up to, I think, a 210,000 march size. Tell me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it does help quite a bit. As you level up your headquarters, it is actually going to take more, or it's going to take certain buildings, meaning that, let's say, to upgrade it to level 8, you might have to upgrade your farm to 25, or not, sorry, not 25. You might have to level it up to also to 8 or 7, so you can get your building up to 8, which might require different things. So always be on the lookout for that. When you're leveling them up, do try to spend your speed ups smartly, in certain events, maybe like Endless War or other events. I might have other videos on that can tell you what events are good for it, what events are bad to use your speed ups on. You can always look at that. Next, I kind of want to hop into sorry, I was thinking, guys, and I was going to say troops. Obviously, I was talking about march capacity, but your march capacity is not going to matter if you don't have troops, and your base is basically defenseless if you don't have troops, which, as you can see, I have a decent amount, which is 2.7 million, which is probably a lot more than the average player in this game. I'm currently upgrading these tier 4 troops, which I kind of regret having. I'll explain kind of I'll explain the troops in general. As you can see, I have a lot of troop might, but troops defend your base, which is extremely massive. It keeps you from getting raided, which, as you can see, I have 1.5 bill food, 1.4 billion wood, and 900 million steel, which if I didn't have any troops, people could just walk in, hit my base, and steal all of my resources, which, we can't have. Basically, range, I call these cavalry, but you can call them riders, and infantry. They all have around the same purpose, which is either fighting people, fighting zombies, or just being able to fight hive minds, any of the such, right? Being able to just have them to fight. And I guess you could also consider the same for engine, but I don't really recommend you to use your speed ups if you're going to push troops on engine troops, because engine troops, they're not bad, but they're not worth spending your speed ups, where you could be spending them on troops you'd fight with. So engine, I would say, are really good for, let's say, squad capacity, which means that you can, let's say you've zeroed somebody, meaning you've hit somebody's base and you cleared it out of troops. You can basically send engine troops to gather the most amount of resources from a base, and it also applies to gathering resource nodes, which if you send your engine troops to a resource node, they'll gather, you'll have to send less of those, which is just really efficient. Though they're not good at defense, not the best at attacking, they're really mostly for resources and just resource gathering at the such, which I want to mention. You can find it right here by hitting this little kind of scope, whatever you want to call that, and you can just see the resources that you need, to gather. I also want to explain these resources and what they're used for, which, as I said earlier, upgrading buildings, you use those resources to upgrade buildings, and you're not always going to have an infinite amount, meaning that you have to constantly be gathering resources around the map to be able to constantly keep upgrading stuff and building your army, which if it was just as easy as having it, I'd have, an infinite amount of troops, besides the fact that I don't have the speed ups, which, as I said, use them wisely so you can get the most out of your speed ups usage. I also want to mention that, as I said, food, wood, and steel, all of those are used for upgrading buildings and training troops. I want to mention that the oil is the one kind of outlier, whereas you don't use oil to really upgrade buildings, but you will use it to, start researches, which I'll kind of show you here. Clicking right here, you can see 9 million oil for this, 30 million food and wood, 15 million steel. You also use it for some sort of troops, which I'll speed this march up, this training thing up so you guys can see it. You see, I spend 200,000 oil for a batch of tier 5, and to upgrade this, it takes 170,000 oil, and then the other resources, which, let me say, that is a decent amount of oil. Not everybody has this much resources. I also want to kind of end off this video by explaining heroes. A lot of these, legendary heroes, except for one, are all like mostly combat heroes. These two, you can use these for siege. I rarely recommend them just because they are really good at sieging bases, and I love these heroes. I also like, just any of these heroes, which are really good for, I'd say, field combat and just like fighting stuff out. But I kind of want to explain that leveling up heroes is so huge because when you get your squad capacity up, your skills just kind of improve your battlefield, which I want to say you kind of have to save up like these legendary hero relics to be able to like pump up certain heroes that you might not be able to max out as easily. Like for example, Jaden, you can't even use them on him because he is a game that the hero helps you kind of build up, so you have to actually help build him up by using him in the campaign and getting the stuff from him. Let's say Maxine Wincott, basically Clementine. If you go to the talents, this hero is one of these gather heroes, which I want to mention that when you get them to level 44, which is basically the max that I will get them to, unless like you kind of farm with them and then just get their level up to max them out as well. Once you max out the other heroes, you can actually max out their gathering tree, which is really good because it just makes you more efficient at gathering resources, which, as I said, I recommend getting these to 44, but I also wouldn't rush them if you don't have your other heroes, because other heroes are really important for being able to fight on combat and help your alliance in like just battles. But yeah, getting these to 44, pretty huge. You can see these gathering trees. It's the same with Alexander. I don't think these other heroes, I know it's the same for Angela, Michelle, and I don't think Chris. I know for Andrew, Black Alley Doctor, and then Allison as well, I'm pretty sure. No, not Allison. Okay. But yeah, you guys get the point, and I hope that really does help. This is just me kind of throwing it off my tongue. I really hope this video does help you guys because I'm just trying to, give a little beginner guide, help players who are just coming in the game, who don't have any experience in like games like Rise of Kingdoms or any PvP games of this sort. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope you guys come back for more.